A new report has linked the Big 12 and multiple ACC schools in mutual conversations about expansion. Good. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy summer, everybody. I am Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12, America's #1 Big 12 podcast. That is Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor. Thank you for making these shows your first listen every single day. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. On today's show, there is mutual interest between the Big 12 and certain ACC schools. Shocked? I'm not. We'll also cover how the ACC changed its scheduling thing, and it's really, really stupid. That just whole league is just malpractice from a leadership standpoint. And Nikki Collen has signed an extension with the Baylor Bears. She is better than Kim Mulkey, at least in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways. Off the riff, this comes from our friend. Drum roll, please. Greg Swaim. I get it. Okay. I get it. However, Greg and I have met. Greg is a nice guy. He also said that I'm a nice guy, and not everything he's tweeted, he says it. He's self-aware. Okay, yes.
Are you gonna see Greg this weekend? Is he Louisville based?
I don't think so.
No.
I
thought he was a Kentucky.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So Greg is a nice guy.
Well, I know he went to Oklahoma State. I just thought he was based out of Kentucky. Sorry.
102,000 followers and has worked in media for decades now and college scouting recruiting services. A really cool story. He is aware that sometimes his sources and his tweets are a little poppy, they're a little out there. They gain some traction because they're on the crazy side. And I'm not going to tell you that his sources aren't my sources. I don't know who he's talking to, so I can't tell you that this is something you should take for truth. But I do want to break down the possibility and what it looks like. Do we even want this? That's probably my first question. Cameron, he says, can confirm that there is now mutual interest between the Big 12, NC State, Virginia Tech, Louisville, with third-party talks currently going on. That is the beginning part of the tweet. Says that's no surprise, as we reported this before, but the fourth team could be one of several between Miami, Georgia Tech, and Pitt. Do you want my first question off this? Let's say it is true. Do you want NC State? Do you want Pitt? Do you want Virginia Tech feels right? Louisville feels right. But where do you draw the line and say, we don't really need you?
To answer the question, no, I don't. And it's really nothing even against those programs. It's just what does that bring to you? And go ahead. Yes, before I finish. Yeah.
Would you rather have NC State or UCF?
All things being equal, we're back to 12 teams. UCF.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's a good point. Yeah, because of where it brings you to Florida. I mean, as much as we love the basketball thing in the Big 12, which we'll talk about, and what small role that plays in expansion.
NC State has had a couple of times.
Yes. And not bad football recently. Not great, but not bad football. They've been in the rankings, right? But it comes down to football, and I like being in Florida as a conference more than I like being in North Carolina, the state I'm actually recording from right now. I just don't I don't see what more that brings you, bringing in those teams. Yes, Drake.
UCF, fourth best brand in Florida. Yeah. Behind Florida, behind FSU, and behind Miami.
Brand, yeah.
NC State in a random hodgepodge behind North Carolina with a couple.
East Duke.
Yeah, right. North Carolina's up there from a brand standpoint, total brand, not just football, I guess.
Correct.
North Carolina and Duke. Wake Forest isn't great, but NC State's just not. And it's in North Carolina, which is Florida.
NC State to the other two schools is like the Big 12 to the other two big conferences, right? Okay. They're solidly third, but they're way third. You know what I mean? And so UCF, yes, is the fourth best brand in Florida, but they're a better athletic department than Miami is right now. And football is in a better spot than Florida is.
True.
So, yes. And I do understand that branding is a huge part of this. But UCF is a good athletic department.
Let's go, Brandon,
with your conference. Yeah. Yeah. So I think we talked about this last time in respect of Clemson and Florida State. Sure, sign me up. And I know we denigrated Clemson a little bit, but like, yes, I'll take those any day of the week. But the quantity of this new report does not outweigh the quality of the two teams that you got in the last report, right? I as much as NC State and Pitt and Louisville and someone like a Georgia Tech or Miami, in theory, could fit in with the rest of the schools with the Big 12, why are we expanding from 16 to 20 to get them in? You know, 16 to 18 with those two schools, Clemson and Florida State, makes a ton of sense because it can bring in a lot more money that can make it make sense for you to cut up your pie in a few more slices. Cutting up 4 more slices of pie for those schools, it doesn't make sense to me. The way that it wouldn't have for the Pac-12 to add Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma State.
Swaim goes on to say, by the way, of course, no one is giving up on Clemson and Florida State, but they want more than your marker is willing to give, both in money and longevity and grant of rights. So yeah, man. I mean, my deal has always been, and I don't know if we've had this discussion, and I don't know if you align. Hey, if they want more money, give them more money. I don't really care.
Sure. I mean, there's a line, right? But I think, yeah, of course, those schools, that's college football has entered that. You know, it's not it's not just we all get an even piece of the pie with how conference realignment has gone. Now, the Big 12 has been lucky enough that they have been able to do that, but this is where we're at. Why teams want to go to your conference because they want a bigger cut and therefore some more prestige with it. So I wonder then if this is a smokescreen of like, oh, okay, we'll if you guys want this much, we'll just take the other ACC schools instead. Good luck. Yeah. Good luck finding a place. We wish you the best.
Greg Swaim to put the smokescreen out there. True. Coming up, the ACC conference is kind of embarrassing. They keep doing stuff that I think that's funny. Don't do that. It's Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. I am a big Game Time fan because I can book a flight, and then guess what? I can change that flight to a different location to go to a different concert, or a different sporting event. And I don't buy tickets to that sporting event or concert until the day of, hours before, because I can save 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, and comedy. Up to 60% last minute. Flash deals, zone deals, all in pricing. Boop. Hit that feature, gives you the total up front. That might be my favorite. Might be my favorite. I love the buying things late, but the fact that I can toggle that and not have to worry about, what are the fees going to be? Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time has ticket coverage as well with the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Go to an MLB game. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and buddy, that's guaranteed. Beautiful news out of the ACC. They want you to make your schedule hard. The conference commissioner, according to the NC State coach, this is a Josh Graham show tweet, a direct quote from Dave Doran, the head coach at NC State, says, "We were asked by the ACC to play as many Power 5 games as we can. We were told not to play mid-major games on the road," which, sure, those, we're scared, but you can be. Just don't avoid the trap. That was him explaining why NC State has ditched an appearance with App State on the road and booked instead conference opponent Virginia as a non-conference matchup.
Yeah,
buddy, can we go somewhere here for a second?
Yeah.
Can we look at a list of the non-conference teams that most college football playoff teams have played in the four-team era? Because there's a whole lot of Week 11 SEC games against Western Carolina.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of Georgia's going to play a real tough one against CalBAP this week.
Georgia State.
Yeah. And all the ACC schools, the conference commissioner says, yeah, we'll give you more money if you win more football games, but you better be playing the good guys. Hear me out. A loss versus any Power 5 team is automatically worse than a win against any FBS football team. And I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy either. But I also don't mind the ACC doing this.
Okay, wow.
I really don't mind them doing this because I think overall...
So you want to kill the livelihood of mid-major programs?
Yes,
that's what you're saying.
I do. I think it bolsters your conference without really doing anything, because even in this college football playoff world, we are still very much and always have been in a BCS mindset. Okay, and this is what I thought about with Baylor for years. For years under Art Briles, I thought they are missing opportunities when it comes to playoff ranking and when the playoff rankings come in November, that they are getting screwed because the conference is not good enough. And I think that is proven by them missing the postseason in 2014 specifically. And all they really needed to do was schedule another Power 5 team in that week 2 slot. You know, instead of SMU or Rice, the old Southwest Conference rivals, you pick any Power 5 team that stinks, Minnesota, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and it's a win, and it makes your schedule look that much better. So I don't mind the ACC doing that. Look, the North Carolina schools specifically are already trying to get away from the state doesn't want them to, but the schools are trying to get away from playing App State and Coastal down in South Carolina or ECU, even though those are great for the economy. I think that is a good move by the ACC. It really doesn't take a lot. You go play Cal, Cal's in the ACC. I was looking at it from a Big 12 perspective. You go and play Cal in the Big 12 and you win it, and it automatically looks better than beating Texas State, because I've heard some teams in the Big 12 can actually do that. They can beat Texas State. I haven't met them yet, but apparently that's a thing. And so that automatically makes your team better, which in turn makes your conference look better. And we know the ACC loves a good non-conference schedule. It all comes back to Brad Brownell. It really does. And they look at their record versus teams from other conferences. That Brownell kept throwing that around, the ACC record against Big 12 teams in basketball. So clearly it is something that conference cares about. And when you are spiraling the way that conference is, how can you not do anything possible to make your image look that much better? How can you not, come bring to your shareholders meeting, hey, look at how good we were against the Big Ten this year? Because, North Carolina State beat Illinois and BC beat whomever, Rutgers. And look at that. That's 2-0 against the Big Ten. I think that works. But yeah, kill the smaller programs, survival of the fittest. Isn't that what college football is all about?
What's better? Playing a road game and beating App State, which, by the way, NC State might lose.
It's not a given. It is not a given.
The underlying here is going, well, shoot, guys, we might not win that one. So, you know what game we might actually have a good chance in? Old conference foe Virginia. Is it better to beat?
Now that doesn't make any sense, by the way. That should not be allowed. The ACC says no, play a non-conference game out of the conference. We all love to beat up on Virginia football. We've been doing it for 125 years, but you need to go out of the conference.
This is why it's colossally embarrassing to me. Is NC State was like, oh, Power 5 programs? Sure, we'll do that. Is
the ACC Power 5 enough for you? ACC.
It's a Spider-Man meme. It is.
Virginia's
just not going to count.
Ooh, getting 2 birds stoned at once. Let's do this.
I would rather win a road game against 9-3 or 10-2 App State than win a home game against 3-9. Or they won an 11 last year. Did they win a game?
They were pretty bad. They won a game.
They were terrible.
Sure they might have won.
And NC State said, you know what's more winnable than playing App State? Our very own friend from the league that we're in. And that, to me, is so monumentally. If tomorrow Utah, who's a much better football program than Cincinnati, said, non-conference game against Cincinnati, that is embarrassing and bad and shouldn't happen. It's exactly what's happening here.
Well, yeah, that's where it kind of they've stepped on the rake and it hits them back in the face, right? It's kind of a way to get back at the conference, I guess. But I think a better example would be like if you're NC State, does a win against 10-3 App State look better than a win against 3-9 Cincinnati, 4-8 Cincinnati? It does. And I think that's where
they're just worried they're going to lose.
Problem of the conference versus a problem for the program. And I think that's the risk you take by having one or two of those versus, having a team like Clemson playing Penn State maybe instead of SC Upstate. I think that's much more likely.
Presbyterian. It's always like a fun one. That's always a real fun one in there. The Citadel. Now that I've moved out here,
bounce pass,
moved close to the Low Country. It's cool how many just little niche. Oh, UNC Wilmington's football team. You can just drive up and see them.
Seahawks, good town, Wilmington.
Yep.
Good
Coming up,
town.
Nikki Collen has been extended at Baylor. And Kim Mulkey sucks on Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show that you're watching or listening to right now is brought to you by eBay Motors. I have a Nissan Maxima, 2016 Nissan Maxima. It's sitting outside right now. Boop, boop. That was me locking my car. eBay Motors gave me a new bumper because mine kept getting hit with baseballs. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and bumpers. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. 122 million parts. For your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is it's guaranteed to fit. eBay Motors. You're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. That is eBay Motors. Nikki Collen has signed an extension at Baylor. I know there are a whole lot of Kim Mulkey people that exist in the Baylor realm still that are like, well, if we only had Kim Mulkey back, we could still win games.
Who will be listening. Yeah.
At this point, if you are Baylor, what you gave away, I know it's crass to open the Nikki Collen extension conversation with Kim Mulkey, but that's who I was at Baylor for. That's who you were at Baylor for. That's the person that brings in all the hype out of this stuff. For what you have lost in a national championship that you won at LSU, you have gained in a human being with a gentle, loving soul and a whole lot less PR nightmare.
Yeah.
Does this solidify Nikki Collen as the head coach of the Baylor women's basketball program without Kim Mulkey's name still somehow attached to her?
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
My quick instinctive answer has to be no. And it's evidenced by the fact that we're opening this with talking about Kim Mulkey. I think the thing that gets Kim Mulkey out of the conversation is winning a national championship, which is a really high bar. And most coaches who have coached women's college basketball have not done it nor come close to doing it. Yeah. But I think when you have a select few programs...
Gino hasn't done it in a long time either.
That's true. Gino's lost his fastball more at 11. There are a few programs where that becomes a standard. And, it's Baylor, obviously, UConn, Tennessee, South Carolina will be that absolutely when Dawn Staley leaves. That's just what you kind of have to deal with. So I think that, yes, Kim Mulkey will still be in the conversations. It will still be in the same breath when talking about Nikki Collen's career and whatever accomplishments comes along with that. And if and when she does win a national championship, that becomes... We really made out like bandits because we had a Hall of Fame coach and we lost her, and then we got another one.
Are Baylor fans excited by this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there is a big sect of what you kind of introduced with, though, of people who are never going to be happy not having Kim Mulkey. And we've seen it. I mean, the tip-off club with Baylor women's basketball, it's a mature crowd.
Yeah,
it certainly is. But they have been loyal, absolutely loyal to Baylor basketball for 20 plus years. And now, like LSU, like we know that. We've seen plenty of that. They are loyal to Kim, and they think that Baylor has railroaded her. And sure, go ahead. But I think a lot of the Baylor diehards are in on this Nikki Collen thing. I think a lot of them like both coaches. I think there are some that also knew the headache that came with Kim Mulkey and understood that this is a better look for the university as well as a good step for the basketball program. So I think there is excitement around this. And I think from what it proves to me is, like, I liked the way that Nikki Collen has been going at Baylor. Especially really the way this last year ended, because, you know, they were kind of in limbo in the middle of the season. And I think a lot of people were like, is this Nikki Collen experience working? And then they were, you know, whatever, 2 baskets away basically from the Elite Eight. And you're thinking, this is a good ascension for this program, another ascension. And even when it's going well, though, when you're replacing a legend like Kim Mulkey, like, there's no guarantee that you're going to have the leash to build the program that you want to build. And what Baylor is showing is that, yes, you will have the leash to build this program the way you want it to. Oh, and also you've got this great new facility. You've got this awesome new arena. You are going to have the resources that Kim Mulkey did. And I think that's really important.
Tennessee struggled for a while without Pat Summitt. Yeah. I mean, anybody, you never want to be the one who replaces the legend. Kalen DeBoer is going to have a rough time at Alabama. And that's what Kim Mulkey was at Baylor. I mean, give her her flowers for winning a lot of games. She just is the type of person who would win a national championship and then throw a party at George's.
Yeah.
Win a championship at LSU and then come back to Waco, put a billboard in town, and then throw a party at the most popular restaurant in the city.
And, you know, out on her way out once the men's team finally wins something.
Yes. With that note, she was doing it for her friends. Come on, man. She has a bunch of friends there and an ex-husband. With that note, is Baylor better off without Kim Mulkey and with Nikki Collen? That question is for you, the Baylor expert.
To be determined.
Ooh.
Am I allowed to do that?
That's kind of tough.
Like, look, if this program doesn't advance in the next 2 years, and again, that's an Elite Eight, that's a Final Four. Like, we're talking big time wins. If it doesn't advance to that level, then I don't know that we can say that. Now, as someone who follows the team pretty closely, I think they have a damn good chance of doing that, of advancing to that level. I really do. I think they've got a really solid roster this year that could well be the favorites to win the Big 12. So that's the kind of standard we're talking about. I think it's overall a better thing for Baylor. I think, and the reason that I will use for why it's going to be a good thing down the line is I think Nikki Collen and the way she does things is going to have a better shelf life than the way Kim Mulkey does things, which could sound controversial. I think at the end of 4 or 5 years here, we're going to say, I think the rest of the country is going to say, yeah, I'd rather have Nikki Collen. You know, the Kim Mulkey thing, it's getting old. You know, we kind of had this discussion when that hit piece came out of like, but this is what Kim is. Like, for better or for worse, she should. I was like, she shouldn't even have to apologize for that. First off, it's her personal life, and like, call Kim whatever you want. She's not a phony, okay? She's not that at all. And so I think that is going to run dry. I think Nikki Collen's play style, or like her game style and her coaching style, are going to be a better fit for women's college basketball in 4 or 5 years than Kim Mulkey's is. And that's based on some faith and delusion, I think. But I think that's where we're headed. And they made it just as far this year.
Racking my brain a bit about people who, was it Calhoun at UConn that won that championship Basketball?
He won 3 championships.
And then Kevin
Ollie won the 4th one, yeah.
So, and then now the new guy, Hurley.
Danny.
Yeah, there have been Chiswick to Malzahn at Auburn. There have been some programs that within the first 5 years of you take a championship coach and they're out the door are back at championship caliber. Amongst various sports.
Yeah, that Auburn one's a wild one. But yeah, that happens. I mean, Dean Smith to Bill Guthridge and Matt Doherty, that looked pretty bad. But within 6 years of Dean Smith retiring, they had Roy Williams.
Yeah,
at North Carolina. So you know what I mean? It happens. Sometimes you go through some lumps, but
and Roy Williams, Bill Self. I mean, there have been programs.
Yeah, Kansas. That's a big
retained really good success in this
Dave
whole deal.
Bliss to Scott Drew.
Yeah, it took. I don't know about Scott. It took him a while to get off the ground. It took him a bit. That's going to be a controversial one long term. Good for Nikki Collen. I just like the fact that she's a nice person. That's the universal thing. When I was still 6 months ago in the Baylor athletic department, you'd walk the halls. I would be drugged through the halls. Get out of here. Was Nikki Collen's really nice, and not in like a. I was on a podcast one time. I joined the Chargers podcast after JT Woods got drafted there. And they asked me, they're like, so what can we look forward to in this kid? It's not a cop-out. It's not, there's not usually a good way to start, but he's a really good kid. Usually.
First over player, baby.
Usually that means they suck, but that's not the case with JT Woods. He is good, and he's still in the NFL.
And can I say this to add to that point? Maybe this is a point towards women's college basketball still has room to grow, because I think a lot of people care about that she's a good person as well as a good coach, but a good person, a gooder person than a great coach that had left. And I don't think you would see that in a lot of men's basketball programs. I really don't think, like, I'll give you an example. If Mark Pope stinks at Kentucky, he's a very nice guy. But they'll be like, well, the guy before was kind of a jerk, but he also, went to the Final Four a lot. They would, I think you would rather take the jerk in most, in this scenario, in most men's college basketball programs.
Yeah. And Nikki Collen's a great ambassador for the school. Kim Mulkey was the ambassador for Baylor there for a bit, and that wasn't a very good thing.
Not for what Baylor's going for anyway.
She told you to smack people, and I
cheered for that, so I can't. I was in the building cheering for that. So
yeah, get him! Come on!
And I look. I'm still in a weird way a Kim fan. I am. It might not sound like it, but I am.
She's got some moxie. She's got some moxie.
Oh, she does.
Maybe her son will be my coworker soon. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Baylor. And Dose Grande. Bye.